You're listening to Comic Reflections, episode 11. I'm Nicholas Prom.
And I'm Spencer Valadez.
Okay, so we're going to forego the webcomic of the week this week. That feature will return next week, hopefully. Yep. We still want your emails for suggestions on that feature, so drop us a line at comic.reflections@gmail.com.
Yes, that's correct.
Beauty. All right, so The Amazing Spider-Man movie came out a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Spencer and I went and saw it. And, what do you think of that there, bud?
It was great.
I was very happy with the movie.
I was concerned because the last few had been just...
Well, the first two were all right, but then that third one was horrible.
Yeah. And so...
I just, months ago I was thinking, like, oh, man, it's like... They had a poor choice for Spider-Man before, and I was thinking they made an even poorer one.
Yeah.
Boy, I couldn't have been even more wrong.
Definitely.
Andrew Garfield delivered the goods. He was solid as Parker and Spidey.
Yeah.
And Emma Stone, she's a terrific actress.
Yeah. She has her chops.
I mean, she was Gwen the entire time. It was great.
Yeah.
And boy, I hope that they don't have, like, in the sequel, get her getting killed by the Green Goblin.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean,
I want her around for a while.
Yeah, definitely. I was also like, why are they rebooting this? Why aren't they just gonna carry on and write a better movie with a new cast?
Right.
But you know what? I like this. The clean slate here is a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
I think people are gonna have mixed feelings about this movie because it's so soon after soon after the other movies, and they have a really strong impression in people's minds.
Yeah.
But I like this. I was also like, really, they're going to go back to he has to make the web shooters? Right. I thought the organic web shooters was actually an improvement. Like, it's spider powers. Okay, cool. Then we don't have to have I'm out of web fluid plot device. Yeah. But the swinging on the webs in this movie was great.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought the costume was going to be weird, like, because I've seen stills. But when you're watching the movie, it looks more like... closer to, comic Spider-Man than the other one.
Yeah.
Which was a shocker.
Yeah.
Because I thought the costume looked great in the other movies.
Right. I feel like there was a lot of CGI costuming in the first three movies.
Yeah, and this is definitely somebody on wires, and it just looks more real.
Yeah.
And it's... Yeah. This was good. What are we going to say? I mean... This, we actually got a little delving into Peter Parker's parents.
Yeah.
I mean, and I love that immediately has ties to Connors, who works for Oscorp. So they've already got this stuff built up, real good. I mean, we are aware of Norman Osborn, but we don't really see him. And that's cool. I like that we know he exists in this world and whatever. Clearly, he's going to have some involvement in the next picture.
Yeah.
But this is Peter in high school, like really starting ground zero, kind of like in the comics. They've kind of sped up some things, like obviously, they're bringing in Gwen way early, but that's fine.
Yeah.
They sped up the spoilers. They sped up the whole thing with the relationship between Peter and the Stacys and everything.
Yeah. Especially with Captain Stacy.
Captain Stacy. And this was a different Captain Stacy. In the comics, he was kind of like this almost grandfatherly police chief with a young daughter. And I think he was a widower in the comics. But he had a great relationship with Peter in the comics. And, when he died, it was revealed that he knew Peter was Spider-Man.
Right.
And, in this, Gwen knows he's Spider-Man almost immediately. She never knew.
Right.
In the comics that he was Spider-Man. So...
And in the comics, it's an important dynamic because she doesn't know, but she blames Spider-Man for the death of her father.
Right, because he was killed from falling debris. Like, Spider-Man was in a fight with not even Doc Ock, but Doc Ock's arms were kind of, like, separate from him doing this thing. So... that's a really great story. It's a classic.
Uh-huh.
So it was a different kind of dynamic. There was a combative kind of relationship with him and Captain Stacy, and then they come together and kind of have this moment. It's setting up great things for the next movie.
Definitely.
It's kind of like feels a bit like in the previous series where it's like, oh no, I can't be with you because I'm afraid you'll get hurt with Spider-Man. But this adds a greater level to it because he promised, Captain Stacy made him promise to stay away from Gwen to protect her. But obviously she's still going to be working for Oscorp.
Yeah.
And even though Dr. Connors is gone, I'm sure that she'll still have some involvement there.
Absolutely.
And being that said, we're probably gonna have the Goblin or some, I don't know.
Right.
She will be unavoidably involved, and of course, Peter will be there. Right. So
we talked about how we want her to see more of her.
Yeah.
And we hope there's multiple sequels.
And I hope that they never do a Death of Gwen in the movies.
Yeah.
I mean, if they do, it will be brilliant and the most saddest thing you've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
Emma Stone is such a great Gwen Stacy. Wow. This is how Margot Kidder defined the role of Lois Lane.
Right.
This is that, but so much more.
Yeah.
And I loved Margot Kidder. I still do. But
so we talked a bit about Gwen and Captain Stacy.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and Andrew Garfield.
Yeah.
I think he did a great job. He made me care again about Peter Parker.
Yeah. And no one will ever be perfect as Parker, but he was Tobey Maguire was not good. He just wasn't. He was just so wimpy and whiny.
Yeah.
That's different than being the everyman, and the underdog. You're being the sub-underdog.
Yeah.
Toby the wimp was, someone how am I going to root for this guy because he's not likable?
Yeah. Andrew Garfield, the awkward teenage...
Oh, he was great at that.
He was great. And Emma Stone playing with that.
And he was never bad or hammy. He's good. These English kids, it's like if they learn acting as part of their just growing up. Right. I don't know. So, but...
and then as Spidey, we had this great scene where he's looking for the guy who killed Uncle Ben.
Right.
And he's fighting all these guys who look similar, and he's checking them out.
Yeah.
And we get awesome dialogue between Spidey and...
We get the banter, and this is this is how it felt, reading the old comics, and it wasn't corny.
Yeah.
And that's great, because they almost never tried to do banter in the previous series.
Right.
And even, in the first one, he's, refers to the Goblin as Gobby, when they're, in the... And that was a thing he did in the comics. It reads okay, but to hear it just came across wrong. It didn't sound right. You guys remember he's fighting the Goblin in that burning building?
Yeah.
Even though that scene was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, Maguire, no.
Yeah.
But Garfield, great.
Andrew Garfield, big thumbs up for that guy.
Yeah. And it's so weird that when you look at stills and promotional photos from all this, it just looks bad. But on the screen, it's right.
Oh, yeah.
If for some reason So I think this is almost going to be the sleeper blockbuster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, it's doing well. But not Avengers well.
Yeah. I think people are
gearing... But word of mouth is I think it's going to do better by the end of this week than it did opening weekend.
Yeah.
Which had opened pretty strong.
I think people are really gearing up for Batman, and it was a good idea for them to come out before Batman.
Oh yeah, if it came out after Batman, it would have bombed.
Yeah.
And that's crazy for a Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Name alone, it's gonna be a hit.
Right.
But if it came out the week after Batman, it would have been bad.
The thing I foresee this Spider-Man having problems with are for when the younger kids the kids who were younger when the first three Spider-Man movies
those are going to kind of define the character for them.
Yeah, and so they're going to come and see this, and they're going to see a different Spider-Man than they're used to,
right.
And it might put them off of it a little bit.
Yeah, but this is closer to the real, and I'm using air quotes, real Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Than it has shades of the Ultimates Spider-Man, which I'm not into. I'm one of these rare guys who doesn't worship Brian Michael Bendis. I like some of his books, but not the Ultimate books. But not too much. Not so much that I hated it.
Right.
Because I remember reading the first trade of Ultimate Spider-Man. I was like,
right.
a solid. Which is strange.
Yeah.
But this I liked. It had shades of that, but the right ones.
Yeah.
It's bringing it back to high school, but it didn't. There was nothing corny about this movie,
right?
Except for a couple of very, very brief humorous touches. It could have been left out, but it brought a little bit of lightheartedness to a movie that really would have been pretty dark.
Yeah.
Without. So I'm okay with that. There's that the scene where he's fighting the lizard in the school library.
Right.
Because Connors finds out he's Parker Spider-Man and goes to Midtown High.
Yeah.
That scene, there's a couple of goofing around, making Flash Thompson look like a fool, or that kind of thing. That's kind of people are gonna figure out something,
Yeah.
But whatever, I could live with those things. If those are the worst things about a movie, really.
Yeah. And I feel
they're so
like,
brief that it's whatever.
The payback to Flash that Parker does gives him a very human element, because let's be honest,
and it gave us that wonderful scene where Uncle Ben's like, "Oh, so it's all about getting even, huh?"
Yeah. Any one of us gets superpowers or anything like that, we're gonna be looking for those guys who gave us a ton of crap.
It's certainly gonna cross your mind, especially if it's really fresh in your mind.
Definitely,
and so this just adds a level of realism to it. It's but I think so many people think of comic books as really hammy, cornball stuff, and well, of course I'll just always do the right thing. No,
right?
So this is real, and this is more true to comics, So to what comics really are, as opposed to the outside, the non-comic book reader possible viewpoint there,
who just see Superman and think,
sure,
Boy Scout,
Yeah. These are real people, and that's totally the Marvel Comics way. I liked the Lizard. I liked Ivan Rice. I don't know. I'm butchering the name, but I like this actor. He's good. He was very believable. I mean, they got a good actor to do this. It was nothing corny, and almost like Molina was great as Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man 2. Which I think was the high watermark for that series.
The Doc Ock story?
Yeah. I mean, what I like about this is they've broken away from the movie cliche, the superhero movie cliche, or the villain must die at the end.
Right.
He goes to jail. He's gonna okay, good. Okay, yeah. The door is open for him as Connors to play a role later on.
Yeah. And I mean, he's a tragic character. I mean, he's working his whole life to find out, to figure out how to help people,
and himself.
I mean, his main motivation is obviously trying to regrow that arm.
Yeah, but I don't think that I really think that Connors, before this Lizard Serum warped his mind, I think he was good. His intentions were always good and noble. And yes, he wanted to benefit from his research. Mm-hmm. That's a motivator, constantly. He's constantly reminded of daily, what,
Yeah. We do get a scene with, I forget the character's name. But they're in the office of Connors, and they're discussing helping Norman Osborn.
Oh, that guy is Osborn's liaison. He's a doctor of something.
Right.
But, they're going to... Connor finds out it works, and he's like, well, we want human trials right away. You can't do that. Yeah. Well, we're shutting you down then.
We see Connors trying to be that good guy. And the liaison just kind of shoots him down. He's like, you know what? You had your chance to be that guy. You don't get to be that guy.
Yeah.
And so we actually get another like look into.
And I'll bet this happens a lot in research and real scientists, not on this this kind of scale, but like the money and the facility of somebody that someone else is providing,
right?
Like, unfortunately, creates compromises to the noble purpose of a scientist, right. If they if they have that,
right?
It's they yeah. So I think that was cool. That was very human. No Jameson in this movie.
We didn't get
any. But I'm glad they didn't cram him in.
Yeah.
Because there was no room for him in this movie. It was after the movie I was like, oh yeah, that wasn't Jameson.
There was a scene where it said pictures for it's like $1,000 for pictures of the lizard.
And Peter had a failed attempt to get photos. I mean, when he first goes to try and trap him, and it just
backfires.
It did
completely.
But I think that's the fact that we see him in high school and he's the photo bug and he's doing that for the school paper. We'll see Jameson will show up.
Yeah,
he'll be a part of this, and I know it'll be great. He was probably one of the best things of the previous series.
Oh yeah,
I mean, J.K. Simmons.
Tacos.
I demand tacos. Stop. But yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was thoroughly satisfied with this. We had that post-credit scene where someone is talking to Connors in jail,
right?
And we don't know who this is. It's got to be somebody connected to Osborn, if not.
Oh yeah, and it's driving everyone nuts. I'm sure of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was on the internet. Who is that? And I'm wondering, and God, I really hope it's not. I mean, it might be the Jackal.
Oh.
Who was another scientist professor guy. This was the guy who kind of got. He was a supervillain because he made a costume for himself and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But he was this geneticist. It's on the similar lines of. Anyway, this is the guy that kind of got the clone thing, the spider clone thing, which in the original storyline that happened in, I think, the 70s, like, it was a story that resolved itself and then went away and resurfaced years later, and they did the horrible Spider-Man clone saga, which we still have after effects of, because there was, like, 2 clones. There was the Ben Reilly, which was the one that replaced Spider-Man for years.
Uh-huh.
And the real Peter Parker thought that he was the clone. Yeah.
Oh.
And then there was this, like, messed up, like, really crazy, bad spider clone of this guy called Kane. And he never wore a costume. He's just, like, Haggerty, biker-looking guy. Oh. And it's just, gosh, could we just never have this? It's awful.
Right.
And I even read one with the Kane. It was John Romita Jr. art, who was great. I'm like, I hate that this exists.
Yeah.
So.
I have no idea.
But I mean, maybe this could. I mean, there are all kinds of possibilities. I mean, this could
because all we really saw was his hand.
We just barely saw this guy in the shadows. So visiting, and someone's gonna come after Peter because it's more involvement in that Richard Parker, Kirk Connors dynamic.
Yeah. I think with Connors, I think he has enough of himself still to maybe hold Peter, not hold Peter, but keep Peter's identity safe.
Well, he's not going to betray it.
Right.
It's... I don't see that
happening. I don't think his mind's warped enough by the lizard.
But somebody seems to know something about Parker's involvement in all this.
Oh, yeah.
Clearly. And it's got to be somebody connected to Norman Osborn.
Right.
I mean, but because this is like a genetic stuff thing, and that guy seemed really weird, that weird raspy kind of voice, I'm like, what if this could be another supporting character in the Spider-Man stuff? I mean, it could be Michael Morbius.
I was thinking maybe.
I mean, that guy could be just like a creepy guy who's a liaison to thing. I mean, it could be Mac Gargan. We could get the Scorpion or something.
Oh, yeah.
There are possibilities. Oh, God, I hope it's not the Jackal. I want to be so wrong about that. Because I just don't want the Spider Clone junk.
Right.
That would just ruin the series. But there's a lot of possibilities.
Okay.
and this mystery is like, this is gonna be the buzz thing.
Yeah.
It's built in to be like, oh, people are gonna be dying to see the sequel.
It's not like the Avengers where you get the hammer into the ground or the
right.
The look at Thanos or
yeah.
It's a mystery, and I love that about the post credits
scenes. Yeah, I like that. I mean, so I also want to talk about the look of the lizard.
Okay.
A lot of people are kind of like, I don't know, I think it's weak. They should have had like the snout like they had in the comics, but like really, it could have been like too kind of weird looking. I mean, this allows for more expression.
Yeah.
Of like you get to have those, because it's a man monster, not just a lizard monster.
Right.
Okay, so I love the very Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing that we had going on, and I noticed as I'm watching, I'm like, oh, this is great, because you see there's an inner struggle, and he's got the kind of the lizard persona taking over, and Connors is struggling with it, and it was great, and he had a bit of a redemption at the end, and it was good, and we had also, they had the great stuff again with Captain Stacy. Even though it was so condensed and kind of different. But, yeah, I like it. I mean, I can see why they wanted to make the face a little more humanoid, just so when it talks or whatever, it's got expressions.
Right.
Because that's really hard to do with a big monster snout. So I get that. I'm hoping that a couple years from down the line, the CG isn't going to look corny. Because obviously the lizard's CG. I mean...
Yeah. As soon as we saw the face of the lizard, I was like, oh, no, snout. It didn't do anything to me at all. I was like... I figured, you know what? They know what they're doing. They want to make it their own, and they have the liberty to do that.
Yeah, I mean, in the movies, like, changes happen. In the Thor movie, the Donald Blake secret identity thing was gone. And I was like, you know what? In a movie that's going to be hokey, I mean, it makes sense to write, if you're writing comics in the 60s, and this is a cool plot device, and I think that opened doors for stories. But for a movie, you don't need that, because you're only going to get, it's going to be a series, but that's going to be like 5 stories, 6 stories,
Right. They do mention it. I watched it again. They do mention him as...
He had a very brief allusion to a Dr. Donald Blake, but that was just kind of like a smile and a wink to fans.
Yeah.
He won't show up.
No,
in any of that with this, and it's okay.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this movie.
Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I liked it. I'm like,
there's I don't think there's really anything I would change. I told you this that I didn't realize it until just now, but Sally Fields is who I've always pictured as Aunt May.
Really?
Yeah, it's just. When they brought her on screen, I was like, it's perfect. I don't know if they could have chosen anyone else.
And in the previous series, I mean, having Cliff Robertson and then that whatever that old lady's name is that played Aunt May, and Uncle Ben, those were good casting choices.
Oh yeah,
and those were good.
Yeah.
This was great. I mean, Martin Sheen was very good as Uncle Ben.
Oh yeah,
and. We even got, I think, a little more Uncle Ben screen time.
Yeah,
maybe definitely. A little. I'm not sure about that. But the only thing was we didn't get the with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
There was talk of responsibility. They danced around that, but we didn't get that.
Right.
But really, is it's so much... He got that lesson, whether, yeah. It's okay.
Yeah,
I'm happy with this movie.
And I like that he referred back to his father and said, "Look, your father was this way.
Yeah,
I try to be this way, and this is what we've always tried to teach you."
Yeah,
and I mean, he's a teenager. All teenagers don't care,
Yeah, and it was very real.
They learned those lessons over time.
Yeah,
Peter had to learn it a little quicker because he was bitten and he realized I have more of a responsibility.
Well, right, and he was going out as kind of a vigilante. He was just hunting down, trying to get the guy who was Uncle Ben. But then, as he really does become a hero in the true sense. He's like, it's my fault that Connors became the Lizard. it's my fault that Uncle Ben's dead. And Spider-Man's always driven by guilt.
Right.
You know, Batman has been driven by revenge.
Yeah.
You know, it's vengeance.
And that's why I feel like that story is so dark.
And Spidey was out for that at first because he was blaming somebody else. It's like, yeah, that guy pulled the trigger, but it was his irresponsibility. You know, he was off in his own world.
Right.
And, you know, not...
It wasn't his policy.
Well, right.
Remember? Yeah.
Because thought he'd just let that guy, you know, that's what you deserve. Well, and then what happened to Uncle Ben? So that was good. I mean, this was a good movie. I like this interpretation of Spider-Man. You know, I mean, I like it. I like where this is going to go.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you have anything else about the movie? I mean...
No, not really. I would say spend the $8, go see it.
Yeah.
Don't wait. I feel like they deserve your $8.
Yeah. I mean, this is good.
Yeah.
Real good. I mean, there's no point where you don't buy it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's good.
So don't think about having to save for Batman. Batman's gonna come and it's great.
I mean, that's still like 2 and 3 weeks away. Yeah. So
go see this movie because you'll be thoroughly entertained and you'll get a cool inside look into the Spider-Man Lizard story.
One thing that always bugs me about these superhero movies, though, it seems like they almost always have to have that scene where the hero is unmasked and has to fight in the climax with, you know, somebody.
Oh yeah,
that's so irritating. It's just like, just because you're trying to give more face time to somebody? It's like, I hated that every movie that I see.
I think they did a good job with it in this one.
It seemed like they downplayed it a little. Because he gets the mask back on and just goes.
Right. But it's how Captain Stacy figures out that the boy that's dating his daughter is also the boy that he's been hunting for. You know, so this seemed like it had a little more effectiveness to it. Not just, I have to hide my secret identity. It's...
Yeah.
Look, it's my girlfriend's dad who's hunting me.
Yeah.
You know.
So, and that's kind of interesting. That's almost like, it kind of reminds me of a little bit of like the Hulk, you know, and the Betty Ross, and then Thunderbolt Ross has always been that his neck.
Right.
But this is definitely more real, you know. Yeah. I like this, and Dennis Leary, even though it's a different Captain Stacy, he was great.
I love everything he's in.
He's always good. There's that firefighter show that he has that's good.
Yeah. Rescue Me.
Yeah,
that's what it's called. But I think he's hilarious, and his attitude is definitely seen in this movie, but it's kind of reserved, and it's more of a, look, I'm a father, and this is...
Dennis Leary is always Dennis Leary, but he's mellowed with age.
Oh, yeah.
And so he went from being very angry comedian of late 80s, early 90s, and that's his thing, to like, he still is, but it's kind of mellowed out, and it's more subtle and more effective.
Oh, yeah.
In a comedic sense. He wasn't funny in this, really. I mean, he wasn't supposed to be.
Right.
He's a good actor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah. So, I don't know. Great movie. I think we've probably said enough about it.
Yeah.
So,
it's a great lead-in because we picked up last week the Amazing Spider-Man
688, and which is the start of a new story arc, which Marvel wrote this in, you know, like, we gotta have a Lizard story to kind of coincide with the film release. Cool.
Yeah.
Great idea. Because... Let me see that.
Yeah. So this week we picked up Amazing Spider-Man number 689.
Yeah, they rushed the next issue out to just kind of, but
it's again a Lizard story with Spidey, and Spidey's fed up with fighting the Lizard, and he's fed up with
because we talked about the last issue last week a little bit.
Yeah.
So Morbius, the living vampire, and Spidey have tracked down the Lizard, and Morbius has found a cure.
Right.
To reverse to turn him back human.
Right.
But the Lizard consciousness is still dominating Connor's mind.
Yeah.
And this is causing some problems.
Yeah, definitely.
And he's manipulating stuff as he's kind of manipulated Morbius.
Yeah.
I don't want to give so much away, but this is going to be like I think it's going to be a 6-part story. I mean, it's part 2 of the story, no turning back. But something is going to change in the whole dynamic with the Lizard and Morbius. And
I think something big is going to happen to Peter.
Yeah, I mean,
as a hero, he's going to have to make some pretty difficult choices, things that he's not going to be able to turn back from.
Yeah. This is an exciting issue. Really good read.
We get some kind of random characters. A vampire hunter guy who's hunting down Morbius.
And these people might have introduced in previous issues, but it's supporting cast that they're superfluous to the story, but they may add something later.
Yeah, they move it forward a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is good reading. I'm really gonna continue on with this story, with this title.
Right.
So yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 689, 688 is still around. These are good issues. It's a great story arc to be reading. Stories, no turning back. So
yeah, definitely pick it up. It was a fun read.
Yeah.
Moving on, we have the Before Watchmen Ozymandias #1.
Yes. I love these Before Watchmen books. They've all been really great, and this one was no exception. We're getting the early life of Ozymandias, and kind of leading up to his becoming, a superhero.
Right.
His decision to do that, and there's his life. He was a child prodigy, and he had kind of a hard life growing up. And then his folks die, and he gave away his inheritance, and he built himself up from nothing to a mogul, millionaire, and then tragedy strikes, and he, it's like, go.
I told you earlier today. Our listeners know that I just recently finished Watchmen.
Yes,
the book.
Yeah.
And you know. And so when I was reading Watchmen, even before his big plan came into being, I thought, what a tool this guy is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I didn't like him at all. I thought he was just pretentious and lame.
Yeah.
This story gives me background, and it gives me an inside look into who he is and why he is.
You get it, and you don't think those other things about him now.
No, I don't.
Because he is clearly a man cut from a different cloth than most of humanity.
Yeah.
And the arrogance or pretentiousness that you saw is almost validated by understanding this guy is the most real, and he's almost like the pinnacle of what a human being could and should be.
Yeah.
As far as intellect and drive.
Yeah.
And, and his ambition is not motivated by greed.
Right.
It's not a lust for power. He's not a supervillain.
Right.
He is... I don't know.
It's kind of a cheesy thing, but it's the pull yourself up by your own bootstraps.
Okay, Ronald Reagan.
I know.
Yeah.
But I mean, he does. He's like, I have all this money. I'm gonna give it to charities, and I'm gonna go on a mission to find who I am.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I can really say I am my own man.
Yeah.
And I can set up my own life.
And this really, you think wow, no, this guy is amazing. It's
yeah.
And he has arrogance, and he pays dearly for it in the story. And he goes for retribution, which is kind of, I mean, we're going to see what happens in the next issues, but it's kind of misguided. It's kind of like Spider-Man is in the movie. He was like, I'm going to go get that guy. It's like, remember, you caused this.
Yeah.
He hasn't owned up to that yet, and neither has Ozymandias.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's no matter how brilliant he is, everyone still has to have that moment in life. They have to learn that.
Right.
And this is great.
Yeah.
Len Wein is writing this limited series. Len Wein has done mostly DC comics, but he's done a lot of great stuff. I mean, this is the guy that created Swamp Thing.
Oh, okay.
And did that classic early issues of that book with Bernie Wrightson doing the art.
Cool.
And that's wonderful stuff.
Right.
It's like, read that. It's like, people always talk about the Alan Moore run, but the beginning of Swamp Thing is also equally, incredible and, must read. So Len Wein is great.
If you're not already picking these
as a writer,
go get the back issues of Before Watchmen and Pick up all of them if you can.
Yeah, I mean, this one is...
Especially this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's been a weak one, you know? I don't think there's been a weak issue of these titles.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, maybe The Comedian might have been my least favorite.
Right.
But that was still great.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, yeah, pick up Ozymandias, number 1. And next week, I think, is...
we're going to get Minutemen number 2. So, I'm very excited to kind of pick up where we left off with the original Night Owl and the Minutemen. So...
moving along, we have... we picked up Winter Soldier number 6 last week. This week, we picked up number 7.
This is the new issue that came out this week.
Right.
So, yeah, you want to talk about this story?
Oh, yeah. So...
Ed Brubaker's writing this. He did that great run on Cap where the Winter Soldier filled in for Captain America.
Yeah.
It's Bucky. And he's doing this, and this is a great book.
Right. We have more story of Winter Soldier and Black Widow in this issue.
Yeah, they're kind of partners. Are they working for S.H.I.E.L.D.? I want to say they're...
I think they're working for
S.H.I.E.L.D. I think they're agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.,
but I think Winter Soldier is still kind of his own one-man army kind of guy. Like, he does his own thing.
Well, sure. And a lot of S.H.I.E.L.D. operatives, I mean, the superhuman agents are like, like, they have their solo stuff, and then they get called in from S.H.I.E.L.D. for S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah.
But last issue we talked about this kind of sleeper agent who's moving through and, like, killing members of...
people who were stand-ins for Bucky. He's trying to track down Bucky the Winter Soldier.
Right.
We think.
Yeah.
But, and it was weird. That last issue, you almost didn't even see Winter Soldier. It was all about the POV, and we're kind of we're one or two steps behind this sleeper agent guy who we don't know what his deal is about yet. And what a great way to write a book. Like,
oh yeah. In this issue, we finally start to catch up with this sleeper soldier guy.
It kind of reminds me. I'll let you finish, but it kind of reminds me of that Daredevil we read a few issues back in Daredevil. The issue was almost all flashback, not Daredevil.
Oh yeah,
but it was a great read.
Oh yeah.
It was just talking. It was about the relationship between Foggy and Matt Murdock.
Oh yeah.
How they kind of met in college and became law partners and stuff. And I like that. It's okay to step outside of the main thing and do a story where it's the title character isn't in costume or isn't even really in that issue.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun.
That's all right.
And we kind of get a little bit of that with the Justice League, and at the end with the Shazam storyline.
Oh yeah,
where we still haven't seen Captain Marvel.
But it's got to be coming because I mean, now Black Adam is loose.
Oh yeah,
this is going to be the catalyst for Shazam to choose Billy. But anyway, back to Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we finally start to catch up with the sleeper agent.
Yeah.
And Bucky and Black Widow, Winter Soldier and Black Widow, are on the move, and they're tracking this RV that had taken one of the Russian doctors who worked on the Red Project.
Okay.
I think it was Red Project.
Yeah. And that's where Winter Soldier was, because he was like brainwashed and used by the Soviets.
Right.
At the time, and so now he's with S.H.I.E.L.D. though, but yeah.
And so he's taken hostage a guy who fled Russia, came and started working for the U.S.
Defected.
Yeah, defected. That was the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so he's taking him hostage, and so Bucky and Black Widow are on the tail of this sleeper agent, and they hop into they get a hold of the RV, and there's a gunfight, and the sleeper agent finally confronts Winter Soldier, but he escapes.
Yeah.
And in the back of the RV, instead of the people they thought were there, big bomb.
Yeah, and there's no time to defuse it.
Right.
But this is all distraction for something else. And we shouldn't reveal this.
Oh, no.
Because this is the kick you in the groin of the end of the issue. But it makes me very excited to read the next one. Let me just say that.
You mentioned this. We haven't been picking up Cap.
which we ought to, because I was thinking like, oh, it's gonna be tied into that Avengers versus X-Men stuff.
Right.
I don't think so. I think that's tied. It's all the X and Avengers team books are all involved in that.
Right.
Aside from the limited series.
Right.
But I think the solo books are not. So I'm like, I kind of want to start reading Cap because.
Right. And so I mean, there might be a tie in here, which would be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah. Check the story out. Winter Soldier #7.
Yeah.
Next we have Lone Ranger #4.
Oh yeah, from Dynamite.
From Dynamite.
I'm really enjoying this series.
I am really enjoying this series.
I mean, I read it too. It's good.
Yeah. The Ranger is there's more of kind of like a Tonto story.
We did get a big chunk of Tonto here.
Yeah.
That's cool. We get some flashbacks about his life.
Yeah. Which is cool.
Yeah.
At the beginning, we get the scene with seems like kind of a corrupt politician kind of guy, maybe a little crooked.
And these guys are kind of like manipulating the scene of kind of like what's going on with the Ranger, because remember the previous issue, it was they hired him to try and track down these train robbers,
right?
But it's a trap or something.
Yeah,
and so
I think the crazy religious utopia town.
And the guy is just using it. He's using the Bible as a weapon, like in the Book of Eli.
Yeah.
This guy's no.
Right.
Yeah.
He's no good. And so somehow the corrupt politician and this marshal who's running the town using the Bible are somehow related, and they.
Yeah. We're going to find out more definitely as we go on. This is an interesting read. They're about to hang the Lone Ranger, and we're getting this kind of flashback and stuff with Tonto as he's kind of like, because he was left for dead.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah,
I can see where some of this is going, and other things I'm like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
This is cool.
Yeah. It's part 4 of 6, and so we only have 2 more issues. I think all the issues are out now.
Yeah, because number 6 is coming out
yesterday.
You just didn't, yeah. So,
so even if you jump in mid-arc like we did, it's great.
Yeah.
And there's definitely going to be cool rounding out.
I didn't feel too lost. I kind of got into it right away. So yeah, it's from Dynamite, and that's
yeah. The art I think is just really cool. It's not typical.
Yeah. I don't know this artist, and I'm gonna butcher that name if I try and say it. It's
right.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So moving on, we have the Punisher #13.
Yeah, and Ed Brubaker, or excuse me, not Ed, Greg Rucka has been writing this, and I've been kind of wanting to pick up the Punisher because I'd read a couple other things by Rucka, and I heard he was writing Punisher. I'm like, oh, I was kind of how I'm kind of on the fence about him as a writer.
Right.
It's not my cup of tea. But I thought, oh, he's writing the Punisher, that'll be just right.
Yeah.
I'm not into this story.
No.
This seems like, I'm like, guy, he's working with the CIA and stuff, the Punisher is, and I'm like, look, this story is like, seems more so James Bond, and that's not Frank Castle.
No.
No. So
yeah, he I feel had I jumped in a few issues before.
I mean, maybe I'd feel different, but I don't know that I'm going to pick this book up again.
I probably won't either.
And I wanted to read The Punisher because I know there's going to be some big thing coming up from The Punisher in the next few months.
There's a great kind of summary of the story that happened at the first, like...
the previous
intro page.
Yeah, and he's working with the CIA for something. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Or with a rogue CIA agent, and they're doing espionage stuff to track down her husband's murderer. And he's kind of like, they show up in this like this auction of like supervillain stuff. Like, I don't know. This feels like a mess, and it doesn't feel like Frank Castle at all.
Yeah.
Other people have done, revamps and daring takes on the Punisher, but like Garth Ennis did a really great run on Punisher a few years back, and that was cool.
Yeah.
That was Frank Castle. This doesn't feel like him at all.
Yeah.
For me.
Again, pick it up for yourself. Read it. You might enjoy it more than we did.
Yeah.
So we moved to Earth 2.
Oh yeah. So
issue #3.
Yeah. So and we've got Do you recall that train?
Train crash,
explosion, or whatever, and Alan Scott was aboard.
Right, and I didn't realize it really before, but he hadn't gotten his power yet.
He wasn't the Green Lantern.
He wasn't the Green Lantern yet, and so we get that origin here.
Yeah, this mystic green energy force comes to him and starts speaking to him. It's like, look, there's something even worse than the war with Apocalypse,
right?
That, coming, and the Earth needs a champion, and so he turns. He was. Alan Scott was about to propose to his boyfriend, and when the train crashed, and so he used that ring to kind of become the lantern ring, and gives him this power. And
I thought that was really clever,
and that's cool. I mean,
yeah.
Some people are going to be bugged by the gay thing, but I think we probably won't even see that very much in the series. And I don't even care, whether they do or they don't. You know why? Because it's a compelling character.
Yeah.
I'm into this. Yeah. I want to see what's going on with this.
Mid-story, we have a break from Green Lantern.
Oh, yeah, we go back to the Flash, the new Flash. And he meets Hawkgirl.
Yeah.
And did you notice that she made an allusion to fate?
Yeah.
You'll know when you meet him. And he's like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
We're going to have Dr. Fate.
Yeah.
Maybe not next issue, but very soon. And I think I was right. This is building up to be putting together the Justice Society.
Yeah, which will be cool.
Oh, definitely. I'm very excited about that because that's something that I think was missing from the New 52. Mm-hmm. And this is a clever way to kind of put this together in an all-new setting.
We have an introduction of a new villain. We won't give it away.
Don't give it away. It's a revamp of a villain you're very familiar with.
Right.
Who is loads of fun as a villain. I think this is going to be a very different interpretation of them. I can tell already. But it's so enjoyable.
It's great.
I'm really like this book. I'm not dropping this anytime soon.
No.
So last week, and we didn't pick it up to this week, was Mark Miller's written another sequel to Kick-Ass, and this is Hit Girl. Hit Girl #1. And this bridges, I guess, between Kick-Ass 1 and Kick-Ass 2, which wrapped up recently, and I didn't read that yet.
No.
But
yeah, I mean, this was just fantastic.
I mean, Mark Miller, anything he writes is pretty much great. I mean, even his Ultimates stuff, and I'm not a big fan of Ultimates, even that's worth reading. John Romita Jr. is doing the art. Great. It's great.
Yeah, that's great.
And yeah, we're getting more depth into the consequences of what happened at the end of the first Kick-Ass.
Yeah.
And more in depth of Mindy, Hit Girl, trying to adapt to a civilian life because she'd been on the lam with Big Daddy.
I just felt so sorry for her.
Yeah.
As a junior high school student.
Yeah.
Because I mean, little girls can be just terrible to each other, and so you get some of that in the story, and it's great. Yeah. And she makes a deal with Kick-Ass, who. Yeah, and so they
have this total pact of she swears him in as her sidekick.
Yeah, which is great.
Love it.
Yeah,
love it.
Pick it up. It's a fun read and there's surprises and awesome.
Yeah, this is more adult, but this is good.
Oh yeah.
I want to stress that some of these are a little more for mature readers. I mean, the Before Watchmen books definitely are.
Yeah.
Really, I think the Earth 2 are fine. I don't see anything that really... But yeah, yeah,
and these are good. Finally, the last thing...
Was that the last? Oh boy, we cruised right through these. Okay.
Yeah, we did.
DC's just come out with a new He-Man and the Masters of the Universe limited series. Right. And the first issue's come out. I was very excited about this.
Yeah.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like either this is a brand new origin, or... which I was like, what? But then as I go on, I realized, wait a sec, he has flashings of memories, and I think Skeletor must have found out that he was Prince Adam. Because if anybody's followed either of the animated series,
right?
Okay, you know what we're talking about. And I think he's cast a spell on him of amnesia or false memories or something, and they're starting to come back. Yeah. We do have a fight where Adam fights with Beastman.
Yep.
And we see Snake Mountain kind of in the background. It's almost like that classic Hero Quest thing.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see that throughout the series. I hope it doesn't, issue number 6 be the climax where he becomes He-Man again.
Right.
But...
I think it will be 1, maybe 2 more issues before we get the...
Yeah. I'm excited about this. I love He-Man. I mean, this isn't... You were talking about you really enjoyed the art, and I'm like, well, I like it. I'm remembering that the Image comics, and I know I hate Image comics, but they had new comic books kind of based on the 2001 He-Man Revival series that were really good comics, and I really enjoyed that series, and those comics tied into that really well. This isn't wowing me like that so well, but I really want to keep going on this. You know, it makes me want to go back and read. Back in the early 80s, DC had a 3-issue limited series of Masters of the Universe. And I kind of want to go back and read that.
Right.
Marvel did some issues of He-Man in their Star Comics line, but those are really bad. Oh. They're just not good comics. They're not serious. They're just kind of cartoony. Those are like really juvenile, really poorly written comics. But anyway, but this is cool.
Yeah, my introduction was from reruns of the He-Man, the Master of the Universe cartoon.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah,
I love that show.
And so being able to read it in comic form is just a lot more fun for me too.
Yeah.
So pick it up.
I recommend it. I mean, like it's a bit of like, oh, it's over too soon.
Yeah.
At where you're left off, but you almost wish you had a little more to like. Oh, I gotta buy this, but. I'm down. I'm very excited about this series.
I think Skeletor looks really cool with his...
Yeah, he looks cool. I mean, I definitely think I'm going to get into this. I hope it doesn't turn out to be something that I'm like, I'm going to drop this.
Yeah.
That could happen. But, so yeah, what else, Spencer?
I think that's all I have this week.
Did you want to talk a little about... You started reading some
I did.
Thunder Agents reprints.
I did, and I mean, I'm reading the Origins right now.
Yeah, the DC... a while back, maybe a year ago, put out a 100-page super spectacular that reprinted a couple of the early issues of the 60s Thunder Agents comics to kind of, I think it was also kind of to be like a companion piece to their limited series that they've had 2 limited series of Revived Thunder Agents I haven't read yet. I'm dying to.
Right. Cool characters.
Great Wally Wood art. Great Reed Crandall, Gil Kane, Steve Ditko. All those guys are all over those.
The story behind them are cool because they're just kind of...
They're secret agents that have like... They discover these devices that allow them to like have these superhero personas, and they're like guys that work 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And it's very 60s, you know, spy, secret agent stuff. They're really wonderful comics.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun to read. I'm about halfway through the 100-pager.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
Oh yeah, I love Thunder Agents, and I've read a handful of like issues from the 60s, and it's great.
Right.
So I mean, I'm looking forward to scraping up the bread to eventually get the DC acquired the rights for Thunder Agents, and they've put out these wonderful hardcover archive volumes, so they've got all the original stuff from the 60s put out. And then there's, you know, there are a couple limited series that revive the material or those characters. What a great set of series. What a great concept.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things in comics. I really love Thunder Agents. So,
if you can find back issues, go for it and pick those up. They're fun.
Yeah.
If you can find the 100-page special.
Yeah. And, you know, and there was a 3-issue reprint series that ran in the early 80s. You can get that pretty cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, if it says Thunder Agents on it, just buy it.
Yeah.
That's fun. How I say it.
They're fun. I don't have anything else.
I think that's probably going to be it for this week. So,
awesome.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, have a good one.
All right.